All right, we are getting started here. Psalm 11, uh, the Lord in his holy temple. Mine says to the choir master, and then there's a period and says of David. Um, Kathy, what does your theme thing say?
It says God's rule provides stability in the midst of panic. Because we can trust him, we can face our problems. And the author is David.
Um, I'm using Stan's John MacArthur. I've not used this version before, but it's the Legacy Standard Bible. I'm going to read out of it because it reads a little differently. And I was kind of liking what I saw here. Psalm 11, Yahweh is in his holy temple. Verse 1, in Yahweh I take refuge. How can you say to my soul, flee as a bird to your mountain? For behold, the wicked bend the bow. They make ready their arrow upon the string to shoot in the darkness at the upright heart. Verse 3, if the foundations are destroyed, what can the righteous do? Verse 4, Yahweh is in his holy temple. Yahweh's throne is in heaven. His eyes behold, his eyelids test the sons of men. Yahweh tests the righteous, but the wicked and the one who loves violence, his soul hates. Verse 6, may he rain snares upon the wicked. Will the portion of, wait, may he rain snares upon the wicked. Fire and brimstone and burning wind will be the portion of their cup. For Yahweh is righteous. He loves righteousness. The upright will behold his face. I like that it
So
used Yahweh in there. Go ahead.
read that verse 7 or 5 again,
Verse
please.
5, yes. Yahweh tests the righteous, but the wicked and the one who loves violence, his soul hates.
So there, now that's saying that God hates that.
He said that about Esau, that he hated Esau. I think might be interesting to see what the commentaries say as far as what the Greek or Hebrew intention is there.
What is the meaning of Yahweh again?
Hmm, let me go back here because we wrote it down on one of the other.
I thought,
Lord with the capital, all capital letters.
That was in our study last night, Gretchen. I am who I am.
He is.
Am.
He is God. He is
mine just
everything.
has mine just says he with a capital H.
I might have at the front of this. Uh,
Or
Yahweh or God Himself. I am who I am. Yes. Yahweh is having a conversation. Okay. Yeah. I am
That's
who I am.
that's one of my favorite songs. If you've ever Charity Gale,
Mm-hmm.
the I am says who I am.
All right. So I'm going to use this Bible, this study guide from MacArthur, since Cindy's not here. Let me find the beginning. There's an overview of 1 to 7. The panic that launched this psalm was not David's, but that of his apparently well-meaning counselors. Their mood is panic, but David's is peace. In view of David's attitude, this psalm can be listed with the Psalms of Confidence, along with Psalms 4, 16, 23, 27, 62, 125, and 131. Also, the solidarity of the theocratic king and the theocratic people is obvious. Solidarity of the theocratic king and the theocratic people is obvious, as indicated by the shifts back and forth between sing and phrasings. The developing verses and lines of this psalm reveal that although two different voices are speaking to David, hang on, though two different voices were speaking to David in yet another context of personal and national crisis, he had made up his mind to trust in Yahweh. So you have the voices. Okay, so the two voices, the voice urging flight, 11, 1b through 3. And then there's the voice urging faith, 11, verse 4 through 7.
Chrissy, can you repeat that, please?
Yes, you have two voices in this. The first voice is urging flight to run. That's 1b through 3, verses 1b through 3.
Okay.
And then the second voice is the voice urging faith, which is 4 through 7.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. Verse 1, in Yahweh I take refuge. God is the exclusive refuge for his persecuted children. Verse 3, these are the words of a committed but confused saint. His philosophical problem is, in view of the crumbling of the theocratic society, what can one righteous person out of a shrinking remnant do? That's kind of how it feels today, doesn't it?
Yeah.
4a, in his holy temple in heaven, this emphasizes the transcendent throne of God. Yet God has sovereign sway over all the affairs of earth. And you can find that in Habakkuk 2:20. 11, 4b through 5a, his eyes behold and his eyelids test. His transcendence, previously depicted, does not negate his eminence, here presented from the perspective of the divine scrutiny of all men, including the righteous. 5b through 6, his soul hates. This is undiluted, perfect retribution. Undiluted, perfect retribution. 7a, for Yahweh is righteous. He loves righteousness. He himself is the perfect norm or standard for all spiritual integrity. And that's the end.
Well, hold on a minute. I want to write something down.
Yes.
Okay.
That was undiluted, perfect what?
Yeah.
Undiluted, perfect retribution. His soul hates.
Hold on.
Oh, excuse me.
Read it again,
Bless
please.
you.
On what? Bless
It
you.
is, thank you. His soul hates. This is undiluted, perfect retribution.
Can you spell retribution?
Sure can. RETRIBUTION.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any thoughts on that before Kathy starts Worsby?
Chrissy,
It is,
my
it is confusing though, the use of the word hate for retribution. Because I mean, I guess I always thought it was a sin to hate. Or is it only God can have that perfect hate?
I don't know if he's perfect in love. Is his hate actually our human modern version of hate? Or
Yeah,
is
I
his
don't.
hate, or is his hate like you you have had every opportunity and you continue to hurt people, so I'm going to be just.
Yeah.
We studied that last night about look at Paul and a portrait of humble servanthood we're called to model in our lives, but we never follow in his footsteps and serve others if our hearts aren't humble. So we have to be humble in order to be able to deal with that. Because we're faced with, adversity. We will be faced with adversity, but we have to, know not let that bitterness and stuff get rooted either. And
I think
I wrote last night, let the Lord take the wheel. No, it's hard in certain situations, but
I think in their in old language, if you will, whatever it is, back in the day, maybe it had retribution actually had a kind of a different sense about it than what we do today. Where it's not vengeance, it's a reassigning. I'm looking here because in late the origin of that word retribution is like to assign back. It's about reattributing, like
Yeah, like you're
assigning
reaping what you
back.
sowed. You're reaping what you sowed.
Yeah, reassigning. So yeah, it's just different. Yeah.
I'm going to see if I can get a Strong's definition. Intense hatred to God's abhorrence of the wicked and those who love violence. It's a description, is a primitive root meaning to hate, detest, or be hostile to, and is used to express profound rejection. It's Strong's Concordance number 8130. And the definition is to hate, detest, and be hostile. I think that I can say that I hate the wickedness that happens too.
Well, here in I'm looking at Webster's. I don't know. I'm digging a little deeper here, but it's recompense. Retribution is a noun, but it says recompense or reward, the dispensing or receiving of reward or punishment, especially in the hereafter. Something given or exacted in recompense, especially punishment.
But they're doing it to themselves. So as it says, the verse says, the wicked and him that loveth violence, his soul hateth. It says the use of sane conveys a deep and complete detestation for those who love violence and injustice. So these are people whose hearts are hardened and they don't have good in them. It says
Chrissy,
whatever.
it takes me back to what you said about if they're going to be evil and never change, take them
Yes.
out.
Yeah. Like you're doing it to yourself. If God doesn't send you to hell, you send yourself to hell by your own choice. This says, whatever success the wicked and he that delights in doing mischief may have for the present, it is certain God abhors his conduct, and unless he repent, he will, without fail, severely punish him for abusing his power. Well, that's another good point. Abusing his power. So the wicked person is oppressing children, widows, people weaker than him. He's abusing his power to oppression and violent dealing. So this is someone who's abusing, and then it goes back to whoever said about the humbleness. Like as Christians, we are humble, so of course we're not wanting to hurt people, but these people abuse that power. All right, Kathy, whenever you're ready.
Okay, Psalm 11. It's difficult to determine the historical background of this psalm. David was often in danger, whether in the court of Saul, in the wilderness being chased by Saul, or during the rebellion of Absalom, his son. David did flee from Saul's court and hide in the wilderness for perhaps 10 years, and he did abandon Jerusalem to Absalom and take refuge over Jordan, but both of which proved to be wise moves. But during the crisis described in this psalm, David did not flee his post, but remained on duty, trusting the Lord to protect him, and he did. Whatever the crisis, the psalm teaches us that we must choose between fear, walking by sight, or trust, walking by faith, listening to human counsel or obeying the wisdom that comes from the Lord. Verse 1, what David should do. When the crisis arose, David's counselors immediately told him to leave Jerusalem and head for safety of the mountains. They didn't seem to have faith that the Lord could see him through. David used the imagery of the bird in chapter 55, verses 6 to 7. But David didn't need wings like a dove. He needed wings like an eagle. Isaiah 40:31. so he could rise above the storm by faith and defeat his enemies. The verb flee is the plural and refers to David and his court. It's right for us to flee from temptation, as Joseph did, but it's wrong to flee from a place of duty, as Nehemiah was invited to do. The leader who flees needlessly from crisis is only a hireling and not a faithful shepherd. Beware of listening to unwise counsel. Put your faith in the Lord, and he will protect you and direct your paths. What the enemy does, verse 2. For look suggests that these counselors are walking by sight and evaluating the situation from the human perspective. It's good to know the facts, but it's better to look at those facts in the light of the presence and promises of God. There was a secret plot afoot, not unusual in an Eastern palace. The bows and arrows may have been literal, but it's more likely they were metaphors for deceptive and destructive words. Perhaps this psalm was written during the early days of Absalom's campaign. David was upright before God and righteous, and he knew the Lord was righteous and would do the right thing. Verse 3, what can the righteous do? David was God's appointed king, so anything that attacked him personally would shake the very foundation of the nation. God had abandoned Saul as king, and Absalom had never been chosen king, and both men weakened the foundations of the divine government. Society is built on truth, and when truth is questioned or denied, the foundations shake. Don't we know that today? That's me inputting that. The question, what can the righteous do, has also been translated, what is the righteous one doing? God sometimes shakes things so that his people will work on building the church and not focus on maintaining the scaffolding. But the traditional translation is accurate, and the answer to the question is, lay the foundations again. Each new generation must see to it that the foundations of truth and justice are solid. Samuel laid again the foundations of the covenant, and Ezra laid again the foundations of the temple. In spite of all his trials, David lived to make preparations for the building of the temple and the organization of the temple worship. During the checkered history of Judah, godly kings cleansed the land of idolatry and brought the people back to true worship of the Lord. Christ's message to the churches in Revelation 2 and 3 make it clear that local churches need constant examination to see if they're faithful to the Lord, and we need to pray for a constant reviving work of the Spirit. What God will do, verses 4 to 7. When you look around, you see the problems, but when you look up to the Lord by faith, you see the answers to the problems. When the outlook is grim, try the uplook. In the Lord I put my trust, said David, for he knew that God was on the throne and in his holy temple in heaven, and that he saw everything the enemy was doing. The word try or test in verse 4 carries the idea of testing metals by fire, as in Jeremiah 11:20 and 17:10. God's eyes penetrate into our hearts and minds. The Lord tests the righteous to bring out the best in them, but Satan tempts them to bring out the worst. When we trust the Lord in the difficulties of life, our trials work for us and not against us. David uses 3 images to describe the judgment that God has prepared for the wicked. First, he saw fire and brimstone descend on them, such as the Lord sent on Sodom and Gomorrah. Then he beheld a terrible storm destroying the enemy, a scorching wind such as often blew from the desert. David used the image of a storm in his song about his deliverance from his enemies and King Saul. The third image is that of a poisonous potion in a cup. Drinking the cup is often a picture of judgment from the Lord. And there are references to Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and Revelation. On the Lord's hatred of evil and violent people, see Psalm 5:5. What does God have planned for his own people? The upright will behold his face. To see the face means to have access to a person, such as to see the king's face. For God to turn his face away is to reject us, but for him to look upon us with delight means he is going to bless us. When Jesus returns, those who have rejected him will be cast away from the presence of the Lord and from the glory of his power, while his own children will be welcomed into his presence. The end. Chrissy, you're muted.
Thank you. I love how they point out things like the cup, which I didn't pick that up, but it is used as a sign of judgment normally. Kim, do you want to do Tony quick? Why don't you unmute yourself?
Okay. It's not long. 1 through 3. David confesses his confidence in God, who is his refuge, his ultimate place of safety. David rebukes the advice of the faint-hearted and the weak who suggest he should run from danger like a bird fleeing to the mountains to hide. Indeed, the wicked have their bows bent and arrows pointed, ready to bring down the upright in heart. When the foundations are destroyed, what can the righteous do? The people were afraid that due to the proliferation of evil and lawlessness in society, the nation, its social order, and institutions might crumble. David viewed what was happening from an eternal, heavenly perspective and thus challenged the righteous not to be passive in the midst of a decaying culture. Rather, they were to be influential and impactful as salt and light. This is a principle that we too should apply. Matthew 5:13-16. 4-6. God's eyes watch, his gaze examines everyone. David's eternal perspective is revealed. He knows that God is sovereign, ruling from heaven over the affairs of men. He sees the deeds done on earth, hates the wicked, and will punish them with burning coals and sulfur. A scorching judgment will fall on evildoers in God's appointed time. 7. In contrast to the fate of the wicked, the upright will see God's face. Because he is righteous, the Lord loves those who perform righteous deeds. Those who follow him will ultimately experience his presence and enjoy his blessings. The end.
All right, any last minute thoughts, input? My Bible has a little side note here. It says, sometimes it looks like the battle is being lost. Evil appears to triumph daily, and the moorings of societal morality are further undone. No matter how impossible the circumstances may seem, the truth is that God is still in control. Knowing that the Lord is in his holy temple, in verse 4, gave David confidence as he looked forward to the day when the upright would behold his face, in verse 7. That same knowledge continues to give God's people confidence today. Even though it may feel as though nothing can be done and that the foundations are destroyed, the truth is that there is always a proven course of action, trust. Because God refuses to forsake his people and because he is still in charge, the foundations are never truly destroyed. The foundations may shake, but the shaking itself is an opportunity for the upright to have their faith tested and proven. So when the ground feels like it's giving away, believers must seize the moment to put their confidence in God, the one who is on the throne and whose face they shall very soon see. That's our encouragement for today, no matter what it looks like. I think we started out on that same note, talking about no matter what it looks like. All right, if there is no other input, Lori, did you have something?
What a day that will be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Every knee shall bow.
And every tongue confess.
Yes. Amen.
All right. If you're ready for our trivia question, let's unmute. I'm back to my cards. No more waiting while I look one up. Okay, what did the dove come back with to give to Noah?
Olive
Olive.
leaf.
Yeah, that was an easy one. Genesis 8:11, the olive branch. All right, this concludes the reading of God's word for today. Until Monday,
For sure and for certain.
For certain.
love you ladies. Have a good day.
Love y'all. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.